Okay, welcome to the Turkish Films Chess Channel. Today is Daily Chess Analysis, Episode 3. You can check out the earlier game that I'd played, also on my channel. That was with the live commentary as I was playing it. Here we go. It was an Albin Countergambit. And that goes d4. There we go. d4, d5, and after c4, the Queen's Gambit, e5, the Albin Countergambit. So I gambited my c-pawn, he gambits his e-pawn. And this can get pretty tricky pretty quickly, but if white knows what he's doing, he should still hold his advantage. So d captures e5, we accept the gambit, and the point of the Albin Countergambit to push in the center. This pawn becomes a little bit tricky for white to deal with if he's not careful, and there's even some traps that can occur. So, knight f3. Quickly, I can show you what the Lasker trap looks like. That occurs after e3, trying to get rid of this annoying pawn in the center. Instead of capturing it, which would let white trade queens, bishop b4 check is chosen. And after bishop d2, trying to get rid of the check, we have d captures e3. And after taking what seems to be a free bishop, we see e captures f2 with check. The king must stay connected to the queen or else he loses it. And we promote to a knight. That's right, we promote to a knight because this is check. And now something has to be done, often rook takes. And the point of that move, we now win the queen. And this is just a lost game. So the main features of this trap we can see, obviously the under promotion, but also this bishop getting here in the first place is kind of a big deal. Which kind of explains the thought process now, is that I'd like to play that. I'd like to get rid of the e3 pawn, but I can't do it like this, really. It's not very a sound way to do it, so I play knight f3 instead. Knight f3 attacking the central pawn. And so he plays knight c6, defending. This is all fine. And a3. a3 stops the bishop from coming there, so now e3 can be played in peace. a5, which, as you can see in the commentary, I did not understand. I didn't know this was a move. But it's to stop the b5 push, which would be very liberating to white's position. Also, it would stop bishop c5, which is actually also another line. So e3, we played a3 to play e3, so we play e3. This is actually kind of funny, because this is a similar thing, but for black, in the Najdorf Sicilian, he plays a6 in order to play a5, or e5, sorry. And he chose bishop g4. Now, at this point, every time someone had played the Albin Countergambit against me, they had blundered before this point in time. So I wasn't used to playing a sound Albin Countergambit. I just knew that most people that played against me didn't play it very well. So I kind of was trying to figure out how to play against this. And I see a bunch of lines where I want to take here, but he has two attackers. And while it seems like I have two defenders, he's actually pinning one of those now. So I only have one defender or zero defenders. And since this pawn was being lost anyway, I thought I might as well get something for it. There's no good way to protect this pawn. And so my thought process was I can just get rid of this pawn. If he takes with the bishop, I'll take in the center, like I wanted to. And if he takes with the pawn, which is his only other choice, he can't let me take, that's with check. He opens up the diagonal. And that's why I played e6 here. Just disrupting his position. That pawn was a goner anyway. As you can see, that only says that it's a good move. The best move was bishop to e2, which I had seen briefly, but I didn't visually like the look of that so much. I have a pinned knight. I'm just kind of giving up everything over here. It seems sort of passive. Another move, and a more common move, is bishop c5 that's played, which protects the pawn, which is the move that I thought he was going to play. And bishop c5 would justify his a5 move, because b4 would be a really useful move I'd like to play, but I just can't. And then I have a little bit of the line here. I would take, he would take, and now we play bishop e2 anyway. The computer evaluation is going to jump around for a little bit. It doesn't know what it's talking about. There we go. And the line continues, but we just get more of a balanced structure than what you can see occurred in the game. And even white is better in many of these lines. But I played e6. Again, computer recommends bishop e2. And after d e3, to just capture the pawn. It seems like, but you're queen. But we can just take with the bishop and everything's fine. We don't want to take his queen because that would develop his rook for free. So we try to avoid developing our opponent's pieces while we develop our pieces. But e6 was the choice that I'd made. After he took, now I played bishop e2. So just kind of a move order thing. It preferred you to playing this first, and I played e6 first. Okay, he played e5, which this is kind of a common tactic that even young players learn. You often try to pin their knight, but if they have their bishop out, then this is a square that I can go to because it releases the attack on the bishop and simultaneously defends. So I can basically pick up a pawn here. Takes, takes, and takes. He took my knight, but I took his bishop. So now I'm in a very dominant position, +3, right? I'm just up a pawn. His knight's attacked. I'm going to develop and castle. He's not going to be able to do that very quickly. So knight c6, and I had this idea in my head after playing bishop captures g4. The knight can't go anywhere, right? It has like pretty much no squares. Its only square that it can go to is this guy here. And so I thought I should continue putting pressure on this awkward knight. The problem is it's defended. There's no pressure to be had. And so that describes my move, queen to a4. Attacking this, pinning it, but I can't take it. There's not a lot going for me here. Computer recommends queen to b3 because that comes with a threat. That's a very important thing when you're playing chess. So always make sure that your moves, when possible, make sure they force your opponent to respond. It greatly reduces his options. He would like to develop his knight, he'd like to develop his bishop, and by playing queen to b3, we're attacking this pawn and saying, if you do those things, I'm going to take your pawn. And moves like b6 are poor because they let the queen come in and do all kinds of stuff. I had a bunch of lines, but they're not particularly relevant. But I had played queen a4, and I saw knight f6 coming, and I had to decide between playing bishop e2 or bishop f3. Those are the two moves I was looking at, I was thinking about. And I was basically saying, if I play bishop f3, I'm double attacking this knight. He shouldn't defend it because then I'll, double his pawns at the end. So his only option really after bishop f3 is to push this e4 pawn. So essentially I have a choice. I can go here, and then he can waste a move on here, or I can provoke this move and come back. Do I want this pawn forward or not, was my question. And I thought, well, it is an isolated pawn. As you can see, there's nobody nearby to help him out. So if I push him further, that's closer to me, making it more likely I'll be able to take it. With a move like knight c3, with a move like knight d2, I'm already attacking that pawn. Which explains my decision of bishop f3, and after he plays here, then bishop e2. It seems weird to do a stutter step, but it did accomplish the task that I wanted. The computer doesn't agree and says bishop e2 is fine. Let him waste a turn if he wants to play this move anyway. I was worried about letting his knight hop in here. I would much rather the pawn be there. And the computer actually gives a line where he hops the knight in right away. Knight e4 and knight d7, it was debating about for a while. The idea behind both of them is to end up putting a knight here. Whoops, not there. A knight on c5, which attacks the bishop, is on a very nice protected square. Remember, the pawn can't go here. So my fears were partially justified, the knight landing on e4. It just isn't particularly relevant. The idea is to get his knight here. And so after a move like knight c3 or queen c2 gets out of the attack. Yeah. But I played bishop f3, provoking this move, and e4. So now his knight can't go there. But again, he can still do the same maneuver if he'd like to, and the computer actually is really fond of this. Knight d7, whoops, not there. Knight d7, knight c5. This is really where the knight wants to live. Okay. He played bishop c5, also fine, developing his pieces, and I castled. So I still had the advantage here. Still 1.6, 2, it goes back and forth. Because I won that pawn with that little maneuver there. Okay, he castled too. I brought my knight out. This is all standard stuff. And here, I went a little bit wrong. I knew my queen was offsides. I knew it wasn't very good, but I wasn't sure if I was justified in spending the time to bring it back in the game. And if I was going to bring it back, if I should play a move like this to attack this pawn on the way back, or just go to c2. It's kind of admitting defeat, in a way, to have my queen go from here and back, and it didn't really do anything on a4. So instead of that, I said, let's develop more pieces, and I played rook d1, which is a mistake, and gives away most of the advantage that I had. Queen c2 does come with a threat, so I can bring my piece back in the game, and notice I have two pieces attacking this pawn here. And if he tries to blockade it, it just doesn't work because we can keep piling on and eventually win the knight. That would be here. So rook d1, mistake. And he played correctly, queen to e7. I basically am just developing his queen for him. His queen wanted to move off the back rank so his rooks would be connected, and I just helped him do that. Okay, and knight d5. I realized that my position seemed kind of awkward, and I misdiagnosed the reason why it was awkward. In my mind, it was that my pieces weren't forward enough, when really most of the pressure I was feeling was because my queen is sitting on a4, attacking nothing. It has no job right now. And so by bringing the queen back to c2, I would kind of alleviate a lot of my concerns, my tension in the position. And I kind of give that away with this move. Computer recommended h3. Notice he's trying to do this. He can checkmate me here if he wants to. So I should be a little bit careful. But queen f7. I captured the knight. I should have gone to f4. This defends against all these checkmating ideas and also allows my rook open reign. But with this move, he just captures with the queen, and there's a battery against the f-pawn. Now, when you're playing, you should always look at checks, captures, and threats. Queen captures f2 is both a check and a capture, so you would think it'd be very high on my list of concerns. It was not. I just totally forgot that when I take this knight, he takes back with the queen, there's no longer a knight blocking the queen from taking f2. And so I played bishop d2, which is obviously a huge blunder, just ends the game on the spot. Because queen captures f2, king h1's forced, and he takes the bishop for free. So now I'm just losing. There's no hope of anything. And so I'll kind of just speed through the rest of the moves. Defensive technique is only really relevant if you're not down a piece with a worse king and all your opponent's pieces are developed with open files towards your king. Here, there's not a lot of hope. So queen c2. It wants rook e1, which, he could take the bishop, so I defended. I also pinned my own queen, which is fun. Okay, rook e1 attacking the queen, check. We repeat. And then he moves his queen. It's funny that the computer says knight h3. That would just be repetition, we draw, which is funny. And bishop c3. I don't know why it prefers bishop b4, honestly. I guess it's doing this kind of thing to the rook. It's all the same. Knight d3 is a weird move, but still, he went from maiden 10 to plus 12, so not a big difference. Rook f1, saying if I can trade off some heavy pieces, then maybe, I'll have better chances. King h1, knight f2, gotta take that. He takes, and checkmates. I didn't see that, so he checkmated me, and that's the game. So, hope you guys enjoyed. It really was not, it was only really interesting up until my main mistakes, which were knight d1, or rook d1. That's one of the main issues in the position. Basically, I have to say, just look at the position objectively. And the problem was I was looking at the previous moves that had been made. And in chess, you really don't want to do that if you can. You want to just pretend like you just showed up to a board. This is somebody else's position. They asked you, what would you play here? If somebody asked me that question, I would say, oh, clearly this queen is very offsides. The queen belongs on c2 or b3, and I would just pick between those two moves. But because I had been playing the game, and I knew that I'd played queen a4, I didn't want to waste more time by bringing my queen back. But the chess position doesn't care what you played before. It cares what is the best move now. And that has to do with being objective. Here, subjectively, I didn't want to waste time, and I thought that's a bad idea. But objectively, this queen is worse than any of my pieces. This is my worst piece. So it should come back in the game. So that kind of explains rook d1. It just helps his queen. This rook is worse here than his queen was here. So he gets to develop his queen. It's net positive for him. And then knight d5. And again, I kind of talked about that a little. Like here, I'm not lost. It's just kind of equal. And here, again, I just misdiagnosed the reason why my position was feeling uncomfortable. I knew that I was ahead because I'm up a pawn. I'm playing the Albin Countergambit, which I know is not such a strong opening. And I felt uncomfortable. Why aren't I winning right now? And so I tried to kind of force matters. But it was not necessary. Knight d5, mistake. Decided advantage now for black after takes and takes. I just don't have anything developed, and my queen's awful. So h3 here. Hard move to see. I mean, it's not hard to see if you see what your opponent's trying to do. If you pay attention to that, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. All right. That was the game. Ended with queen captures g2 checkmate. The report, I played 60.8%. The game slipped through my fingers. I would say that's fairly accurate. So there's the main mistake here with rook d1, and then secondary mistake with knight d5, and then the blunder with bishop d2. And maybe the game can still go on, even after I, played knight d5 and he's winning by 1. It's still, it's still a dynamic game. But after bishop d2, just missing the check and the capture, the game's just over. Nothing to do. My opponent played well, 95.8%. Only one missed win. That's totally cool. Things to think about are absolute pin, relative pins, bishop pairs, castling, and isolated pawns. I mentioned some of those things, but not all of them. And again, this was, what eco is this? The ECO is, I think it's D04, something like that. I don't remember what it is. But yeah, we ended up in the Albin Countergambit. That's been all. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And remember, please, if you remember nothing else from this video, please remember to stay Turkish. Thank you so much. Aloha.